Okay. So good morning. It is Mass Creative's virtual policy and action update for September 24th. We have one thing to talk about today, and it is the cultural, the Commonwealth Cultural Futures Act bill. So if you all remember way back in February, Senator Kennedy of Lowell filed this bill on behalf of the arts and cultural community. And it is meant to be a recovery bill. So within it, they called for a minimum of $200 million for the sector. It included to create a recovery grant fund. The eligible recipients of that funding was broad. So it was individuals, it was nonprofits, it was also arts for-profit businesses. And the bill called for that the money to fund that fund would come from any federal recovery funds that the Commonwealth received. So if you remember in February, there wasn't an ARPA bill at that point that had been passed. And so Chair Kennedy in his wisdom really thought it was important for us, the sector, to have something to rally around, to talk about, and to make sure that was included in the pipeline, right, with language. Since then, a couple of things have happened, right? ARPA came to Massachusetts. So the legislature now has $5.3 billion that they're looking to allocate. There was a special COVID-19 cultural impact, special legislative COVID-19 cultural impact commission that studied the impact of COVID-19 and the necessary public health closures on the arts and cultural sector in Massachusetts, and made more specific recommendations about the recovery for the sector and its growth and stability. And they called for $575 million minimum of any federal relief money. Okay, so that's obviously more than 200 million. But that doesn't mean that this bill doesn't matter. And next Tuesday, the Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development Committee is going to hold a hearing on this bill. So what's a hearing? We've talked about this a couple of times, but just as a quick recap, as part of the legislative process, every bill that is filed receives a hearing where constituents and the public gets an opportunity to talk about why they support or don't support a bill. It's heard by a committee, and then that committee has the option to either recommend it favorably out of committee and it moves along to its next process, not recommend it or decline to move it along, or the third option is send it to study. And when it gets sent to study, it basically means it's not moving anywhere. But this is an important point. And this is also a really important moment for us, again, to show up and make it clear to our elected officials and the larger community that we're still here and we are still in need, right? And so that's why we're calling today, and we're asking you to think about doing one of three things, maybe two of three things if you've got the time. So the first one is the big ask, which is testify at the hearing. So it's a Zoom hearing. It'll start at 11 a.m. You can sign up ahead of time. The sign up is in the chat. The link is in the chat. We'll send that out later, but you'll have 3 minutes to talk about why you support the bill and why the sector needs really comprehensive recovery now. The second thing you can do is, if you're not able to attend that Tuesday hearing, is you can submit written testimony. It can be about a page and a half. And again, it's going to cover those issues, cover those points. Why do you support the bill? What have you seen in the last year and a half to either your arts and cultural practice, your organization, or to your community? And why do you feel it's important that there be a recovery fund and recovery efforts for the arts and cultural sector? And then the third thing you can do, and this is the one that actually I probably should have put first because it's the most pressing, is write your legislators. This bill has pretty significant support. There's about 61 co-sponsors, and the number of co-sponsors is indicative of how much support the bill has in the legislature, and that's a good thing, but we could use more. So if your legislator has not yet endorsed the bill, we want to get them to endorse that bill. And if they have endorsed the bill, we want them to submit testimony or to show up to testify for that bill on Tuesday to say, I still support this. I still think that arts and cultural community needs recovery funds. Okay, so let's talk about exactly what the ask is going to be, because as I mentioned, a lot has happened, right? So the bill that we're talking about calls for a minimum of $200 million set aside for arts and cultural recovery. Well, we want to increase that from 200 million to 575 million. So it matches the commission's recommendation. We also, frankly, wanted to match the recommendations that are in that commission, which have specific breakouts for how that 575 million is going to be used, with the immediate priority of 375 million being put out for recovery and stabilization funds as soon as possible. We also want to remind the legislature just a review, right? Like, what has been your personal experience in the last year and a half? Why does this matter? Why does arts and culture matter to your community or to your downtown or your main street, right? So reiterating those points is going to be really important. As we just mentioned, here's the legislator ask that we really want to make. So it's co-sponsor the bill, or if you've already co-sponsored, share your support for the bill with the committee. The truth is that we want this bill to continue to help us to elevate and talk about the need for the arts and cultural community. Success for this bill is probably not that it's going to get passed. Success for this bill is probably that some of the language is included in whatever American Rescue Plan Act funding bill the legislature is putting together right now. And so just in terms of setting our goals here, it's again about that 575 million of recovery from the ARPA money going to the arts and cultural sector in Massachusetts. Oh, sorry. So this is literally the thing I wanted to talk about today. So this is in fact going to be the shortest Zoom I think we've ever had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm just going to take a look at the chat and see if there are any questions, or if you have a question about this bill or about the process, feel free to raise your hand, and I can answer it. We have a little bit more time left. If no one has any questions, then you know the things that you can do to affect the process, and we'd love to have you do that. Craig, I see your hand.
Yes, hey, great work as always. I put it in the chat, but those of us who did do some written testimony over the summer, is that sufficient, or this is a separate or parallel process and we should augment it or replicate it? I also don't want to sort of just duplicate it if that's not helpful.
That's a really good point, Craig. So yeah, so when you submit testimony, it goes into the public record. And so that's an important piece of this. So we do need submissions, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Most likely you can go into, if you've previously written testimony, go into that previously written testimony and take a look and probably pull out a lot of it and use that again. The thing that I just want to remind everyone is that you're gonna want to really key in on, we want the committee to report this bill out favorably, and we want them to amend it from 200 million to 575 million. But yes, don't worry that you are sounding like a broken record. You are not. All right. So I'm just seeing, so Lynn says, can we find out who the sponsors are? Yeah, we can. So it's on the MA legislature, but the first chat, and maybe G, you could put this link again, is, oh, look at G, already ahead of the action. So there's a link right in the chat to the list of co-sponsors. We also have them listed on our website in the general area where we talk about this bill, and we're updating that pretty regularly. So Margot asks, is there a record of testimony from the last session? Is there a template for submitting written testimony? So Mass Creative does have a couple of written templates or talking points. And Margot, what we'll do is we will make sure in the email that we send out to the field urging people to submit testimony that we point to those talking points and sort of like process to be like, what's testimony? Why does it matter? But yeah, it is hard to find. I will say it's hard to find the submitted public testimony in the records, but yeah, we can help with that. Great. Other questions? All right, I guess the final ask that I'm going to make today is because we have a very small group, thanks to our technical difficulties, is that all of us have the opportunity to amplify this ask, right? This is really a numbers game. And the more people who show up at that hearing, the more likelihood is that we'll get some press coverage out of it, which helps our cause. The more people who submit testimony, the more it helps the committee in their deliberations. And just in general, the more that legislators hear from us on this issue, they are reminded and keep us front of mind when they are making decisions. So this all matters. So if you are thinking about sending out a staff-wide email today, this would be a good topic to talk about. If you want to do some social media about it, also a great topic to talk about. And that's how this is how we're going to continue to move forward. So just really quickly to recap. So we're having some weird Zoom technical difficulties and folks can't get in. So what we're going to do is today we're going to send a whoops, yikes, sorry, email that will include a digest of this information. On Monday, we'll be able to send out the edited recorded video for folks. And the email will be out by 3 o'clock. So it will give folks some time. And if you find that in your inbox, you can then forward it along and we can get this done. So as always, thank you so much. This is so meaningful to have us in this every other Friday. Thank you for your great questions. We will be back, hopefully with less technical difficulties on October 8th. And then as always, if you are a member of Mass Creative, thank you so much. We're so glad you're a member. If you aren't a member, maybe today's the day that you can join us and help support our work to make sure that we are able to continue to provide these resources and information to make you effective in your advocacy. Have wonderful weekends. It's supposed to rain, but maybe go outside and stomp in a puddle and just get out some of that energy. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Bye.